All right, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the discussion.
Thank you.
But we have to note that the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice is today closing one of Northern Region's most notorious witch camps in the village of Naabuli. Now, this also means freedom for about 57 women cast in bondage for decades. And they, as they've been put there, have been accused of witchcraft. Now, the witches' camps menace, well, they have been the subject of a recent JoyNews documentary, Camps of Bondage. Ahead of the ceremony, Justice Baidu followed some of the women on their journey and just to experience their joy and anxiety as they get out of the camp. Here is his report.
The Naabuli Witches Camp. For some, a safe haven where women accused of witchcraft, fleeing persecution, find solace. But for others, this is a dreaded open dungeon where those that are unwelcome in their own homes come to die. This camp has been here for as long as anyone here remembers. Now it is about to shut down. Kuma Awie is one of the last women packing up to leave. Only yesterday, one woman died in this camp. According to the people who knew her, she was well over 100 years old and had been here in this camp for over 30 years. She died of ill health. It is stories like that and many other women who had died in this camp before her that makes that journey of this woman one with mixed feelings. Happy on one hand that she's finally leaving, but also uncertain of the journey that lies ahead. Kuma Awie's story is like that of many who came before her into this camp. Someone in her hometown said she saw her in her sleep trying to cut off her head. That accusation was enough to convict her and force her out of her home and away from her family after hours of beating and torture.
As I'm going home, I am looking forward to the people I know welcome me back home. My stepmother, my grandchildren, my husband, and all the people I used to talk to.
Mma Ble Bala is also leaving the camp, but would not be going back to her home village 18 kilometers away from Naabuli, where she came from 25 years ago. She's choosing instead to live just outside the Naabuli town.
I am not going anywhere. I am happy here. Even in my sickness or death, I will be here. If I die, they can take my remains back home. But as I live, I'd live here.
Why can't you go home? Why can't you go back home to Nawek?
They'll kill me. The sort of beatings I suffered when I was accused of witchcraft nearly took my life. I can't go back to that again.
I've come to the palace of Isifu Isa VII, the powerful chief of Naabuli, who has led the age-old fight to have this camp closed down.
I am happy we achieved this. I am happy for all the support. Now everyone would know that if you accuse your wife or any relative of witchcraft, there'll be no place here to keep her. Should be your own responsibility.
This is the second camp that is closing in 4 years, setting over 100 women free. But right campaigners who have been at the forefront of the advocacy to close down witches' camps are measured in celebrating the feat, not least because 4 others, which host the most number of inmates, remains open in this region alone. So as the celebration greets this camp's closure, the uncertainty of some of its inmates who are unsure of what would happen next remains. Justice Beidou, JoyNews, Naabuli in the northern region.
Well, so we do have Justice Beidou, and Justice Beidou is on the line, and he's going to give us more of the updates. Justice, good morning. Now, what should we be expecting following the liberation, or as they're about to get liberated? What will be the, so to speak, the items or the actions that will be undertaken? Justice, well, we seem to have some technical difficulties. We'll realign that stream and then try and get some voice over the video. But in the meantime, again, the story speaks vividly about the conditions that women who have been mainly falsely accused of being witches and being meted with some brutal actions by their own community members and relatives who have to, as a result of the conditions in which they find themselves, go and be located in another village or town. And Justice is back on the line. Now, Justice, what will be the actions that the women will have to go through following the liberation process if they've not gone through that already?
So good morning, Roland. And I think that from what I understand, a lot of the processes, both the spiritual part and all of the official part from the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice has already happened. What is happening today is the formal symbolism to show that this camp will no longer be accepting any more inmates. And so anybody cannot be accused of witchcraft, at least in this area. And so this morning, a high-powered delegation from the Shraj and then a group of civil society groups, both here in the northern region and also from the national capital, are coming in today to do the formal closure. And from today going, nobody is going to be accepted as an accused witch in this camp, Roland.
But knowing that those accusations are thrown at these women because there seem to be a certain social cultural mindset, how does these actions and issuing such a fiat take away the deep-rooted or conceited belief that certain women are predisposed to be accused as witches, so to speak?
So Roland, it's worthy of note, and as I understand from the people involved in this process, this has been a long time coming. It's taken a lot of work, a lot of community engagement with community leaders, members, and the women themselves to try to disabuse the mind on the belief system here, especially in witchcraft. And so it has taken a lot of work. It's worthy of note that this is the second with the camp that is being closed. And so it's sort of taking at least 1 year to build this engagement, and then not just that, even compensate the people who sort of benefit from the expense of this camp, i.e. the traditional rulers and then the priests who man these camps. And so there has to be a settlement agreement between the tribes and then these people. And then there's been series, at least in this area, series of community engagement. And I was speaking to a lot of the community members yesterday when we were there. understanding that a lot of them now are very tired of hosting this community and of encouraging this practice where these vulnerable women are active in performing. And so, yes, it is a hope that this is going to build on. What is going to happen next, Roland, is the reintegration process, which is ensuring that these women, those that choose to go back to their community, are settled back in. There are plans to put them on the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program lead to ensure that their livelihoods are kept intact. Because a lot of people have spoken about.
Well, Justice.
Yes, Roland.
It looks like you're far away from maybe the mic or where the mouthpiece is. So.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, you still sound far off.
Can you hear me?
Yes, better.
Okay. So a lot will be happening from today aside the engagement. One of the biggest, it would be the building a sustainable livelihood for these women, because some of them, as you saw from the story, have been away from their communities and have been away from their mainstream source of livelihood for well over 2 decades.
Yeah.
And so getting back into their formal lives would be a very difficult process. And part of it is to set them up in small businesses. Part of it, as I said earlier, is to enroll them on social intervention schemes like the Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty program, in order that they are able to sustain themselves and not be at the mercy of the people, most of whom were part of the people who caused them atrocity and forced them out of their communities in the first place. And so this is not really an end in itself at all. There seems to me, as I understand, a lot of work that now needs to be done in consolidating of this feat that has been achieved today, Raymond.
Now, how does doing this also tend to serve as a pointer for other witch camps or notable areas where people, or especially women, are accused of being witches in such related communities?
So I was involved in the closure of the first camp, which was summertime around 2014, 2015, and after that I've been involved producing a whole documentary on that for our Hotline documentary series, and I can say that relatively it seems a lot has happened in terms of change, and really there's now a lot of people saying that this has to end at some point. And so I get a sense that there's been progress. What has to happen is the institutions to be able to work to ensure that, first of all, people cannot just get up and level some of these accusations at women and hope that the entire community will come up as a mob and beat up a woman who has been accused. And also to ensure that institutions like SHRAD itself is well equipped to be able to deal with some of these incidents when they happen. Because part of the things that they've told me is that because people feel there isn't some punitive action or the legal process to sort of fight back at the people who are engaged in some of these atrocities are not really robust. It really is not. There's no deterrent for anybody to not attack a woman or make such flimsy accusations and on the basis of that force them out of their communities. And so this, I think, is what will be happening. What is worthy of note is that there are at least still 4 camps that are still in operation here. And I understand that there's a lot of work also to want to bring all of them to a closure in the next few years. Okay. Because these are major and well-populated camps, it will take more work and time than what has happened, which has led to the closure of these 2 previous ones, Roland.
Okay. But how do they track how the women will be faring when they go back to the communities?
So I understand the committee that has been set up, which is made up of government institutions, right, campaign groups, and many chiefs, community leaders, and all the people who are involved in this process are in constant touch with all of these women, which is how they are able to know that they would be enrolled on all of these livelihood support programs to ensure that they are not less vulnerable. And so my understanding is that there is a very, very transparent process where government is going to continue building contact with these women, and then to ensure that they are safe. My understanding, and actually you might have seen in the stories, that a lot of these women as well have now, among other things, become so used to these communities, they are choosing not to go at all. And for those women, they are going to be assisted to put up their structures and also to set up livelihoods in the town itself, but away from the confines of the camp, which means then that they are free to live and mingle any other parts of the town, Roland.
Well, thank you, Justice Baidu. And Justice Baidu is on a mission, and it's because the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice, they have now come to a head to close the Naabuli witch camp. Justice had been working closely with not only rights organizations, but also the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice itself, and done a number of stories and documentaries on the subject of witch camps and those women who are falsely accused of being witches in that part of northern Ghana. But look, next we have to discuss the CIMG's President's Ball, and Mapito Sabidi will be doing that next with officials from CIMG. Stay with us.